Hey, it is Tuere of Empower to Fit Life and Wellness Coach, where I help working mothers and working wives develop a plan of execution after they identify their wellness goals. And so, in addition to empowering women to be the CEOs of their health, I also have a new virtual space where I have intentional conversations around health and wellness, intentional dialogue, where we emphasize and highlight knowledge and services that are not frequently promoted around the or access as a traditional means of well care. And so in October, I highlighted breast health. And this month in February, I am so excited to
Yeah,
introduce to some and remind to others the greatness of Miss Candice Moffat of Candice Counsels,
yeah.
as well as New Vision Therapy and Wellness. So welcome, Candice.
Hello. I'm excited to be here and thank you for having me. We've been on this wellness path forever, so I'm really excited to share and be here with you. Thank you.
We are excited to have you today. So, with 3 degrees, we talk about the topics that we talk about. We also talk about their impact on our mind, our meals, and our movement. And so, today, our topic is as a woman thinketh, so is she. And
Mm,
so, I think that is just befitting because we know mental health is um, vital, it's very
right,
important. But we know that it has also gotten more attention during COVID and post COVID, right? And
right.
so we are talking about as a woman thinketh, so is she in
Yeah.
regards to mental health today. Before we do that, I just want to tell you a little bit more about Candice. And so she is a two-time graduate of Winthrop University in Rock Hill, South Carolina. She has a bachelor's in psychology and a master's in mental health counseling, and she has been counseling for 9+ years. She has a history in working with intensive home therapy with teens, crisis pregnancy counseling, premarital couples, couples in crisis, adolescents, and women. So, what better person to have for this conversation than Miss Candice Moffat? Call her Candice Counsels because that's what she's known
Yes.
as on one of her social media platforms. And our conversations, whenever we connect, are always so good and so deep and
Yeah.
so
We can never have
reflective.
a basic conversation.
Exactly, exactly. So just want to share some of your specialties. There are trauma, brain health, wellness, and meditation, visualization, vitamins and essential oils, identity and self-esteem challenges, body image challenges, and again, premarital counseling.
Right.
So we are going to get into the topic today. Sorry that we couldn't do this through the YouTube page live. It, you know, tested out well this morning when I tested it. And of
Right.
course, technology, when you get ready to go forward,
Good.
it has
Right.
its own mind sometimes. So, but that's okay because you all are going to get to
Yes.
watch this.
Yes.
So I just want to share a few stats. Just some stats. As I was preparing for this opportunity with you, Candice, I was just looking into a few stats in regards to regarding mental health and wellness and women as well. And so this first stat comes from psychiatry.org, and it says each year, 1 in 5 women in the United States has a mental health problem such as depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, or an eating disorder. Although women and men have similar rates of mental health problems, the types of mental health conditions may differ. This next stat comes from NIMH, National Institute of Health.gov, and National Institute of Mental Health. Some disorders are more common in women, such as depression and anxiety. There are also certain types of disorders that are unique to women. For example, some women may experience symptoms of mental disorders at times of hormone change.
Right.
We can talk about that all
Yes.
day, such as
Woo.
prenatal depression,
Mhm.
premenstrual dysphoric disorder, and perimenopause related depression. And then this last one comes from the CEO magazine. And so it highlighted the best countries for mental health.
Mm.
And not to my surprise, but still to my surprise, the US was not on here. So
Oh,
the countries that were listed were Sweden,
yeah.
Germany, Finland, France, the Netherlands, Italy, Canada. I wasn't surprised about that one.
Right.
Norway, Slovenia, and Australia.
Wow.
So I was like, I need to move because I
Yes.
need to live in a space that aligns with my priorities. And so mental health is a priority for me. Um, so I just want to have now sharing those stats, ask you a question in regards to how did you become an advocate for mental health?
Hmm. Okay. So it really, I know, right? I get asked this question, and there's so many different ways that I could go with it. But I remember being probably 13 years old, and I was like, I really want to counsel people through the Bible. I didn't even know what counseling was. I just knew that I wanted to sit with people, talk about their problems, go to the Bible or God and help them figure it out. So I didn't know at the time that this was the whole counseling process, but I really had a passion for it since I was, young, and then life was lifing, right? And I began to understand, the anxiety and depression because I went through it myself. And so I became more of a mental health advocate because I'm naturally the person that likes to encourage people. And so this was like my passion to just, help people. Even I remember when I first went to school, like I went to undergrad at Winthrop, right? And then everyone's like, just get a real job, just go ahead and, finish, and you can get you a nice career and make money. But it wasn't about that for me. It was about passion. It was about helping people find purpose and be able to like save lives, because like we talked about before, it all starts in our minds with a decision or thought. And so that's how I became a mental health advocate. From the beginning, I wanted to do this. I had desire to really encourage and help people know that they're going to be okay and that their life does matter.
So before I ask this next question, because you talked about how we talked about this before, and that everything begins with the thought. And so what Candice is referencing, we was having a conversation recently, and I was telling her my grandmother used to always tell me, Tuere, everything begins with a thought. When we would talk about these, people coming up with inventions or business ideas and how amazing and great they would be, she was like, Tuere, everything begins with a thought. And so for me, that was like reinforcement from her that you have great ideas too.
Right.
And you can create just like other people can create. It's just a thought. But what happens is the action that comes behind it determines whether it's going to come to manifestation or fruition. And so again, that's all, with your mental health and how we respond to those things. And so Candice, my next question for you is, what has been the greatest reward of being a therapist, and what has been the greatest challenge?
Oh, you asked some good questions. So, the greatest reward has been seeing people leave. And when I say that, I mean I always tell people, like, I don't want you to stay here forever. Like, I want to be able to help you. You gain the tools and then you leave, and the next person comes through the door. So, to see people blossom and actually use the tools that we've created in therapy and be able to move on and not be so anxious, or be able to go after their dreams and not be depressed or laying in the bed, or, just the simple like things of being able to shower and not being depressed anymore. And so seeing people blossom has been the greatest reward, and they go on and become great, and they've overcome their symptoms, and whenever the symptoms do come, they know how to get over them. Now the greatest challenge has been when people have so much potential but they don't want to do the work, when they think
Mhm.
that therapy is, oh, Candice is going to wave her magic wand. I am not God. I do not have a magic wand. When people get the wrong idea about therapy, that is the greatest challenge. I've seen that a lot with the teenagers. Parents
Mhm.
think therapy is a tool for us to come and change their teenager. When really, I found that in working with the teens, it's really the family work. So I'm including the parents in there and the team, and we all talk and try to get to the bottom of what's going on. So that's been the greatest challenge, when people don't understand therapy and they really are not trying to do the work. They want me to do more work, and that's not happening.
Right. So as you was talking out, and you already hit the nail on the head when you started talking about the teens and then the parents. I definitely can relate to that, working in education. And so, working with preteens and teens, you're doing all this work to positively impact them. But when they don't have that reinforcement at home, it's
Mm,
like everything is undone, or the seed doesn't get water. And so it becomes frustrating where you can sometimes just be like, you know what, I can't try anymore because everything I'm pouring into you is being sucked out of you when
Mhm.
it's not aligned with what goes on in your household. So I'm so glad that you mentioned the importance of parents being a part of the healing process or the mental health strengthening process when you're working with teens, because it is important
Right.
that it continues at home. Like the strategies and techniques you're teaching them, they need to be reinforced in their home as well. Awesome. So yeah, that is great in regards to your greatest reward is when people leave. I never thought about it like that, but that means that they gotten what they need and they can go out into the world and be successful and even hopefully share it with other people.
Exactly.
So, my next question for you is, why is mental health so important for women? Because our topic
Mhm.
today is as a woman thinketh. So, why is mental health so important for us?
Listen, listen. I can go many ways with this question too, but I'm gonna keep it brief and simple. Um, Women do so much, like we talk about all the time. Like the funny thing is to where I knew you before I became a mother and a wife. And now that I am one, I understand. I understand the things that you go through, the time commitments, the strains. As women, we do so much, we carry so much. And I think in society, we carry even more. Like, if you look at the timeline, right? I'm not going to get into the numbers, but the timeline is okay. At one point, we were, as women, we were just taking care of the babies, we were cleaning. That's a full time job, not belittling that, but we were doing that. And then nowadays, we add a job, a career, living our dreams. And so we are pulling in so many directions that it does affect our mental health, that we don't know how to rest. And then the new age of technology, we are stimulated in so many ways. So not only are we stimulated, we're taking care of our families, we're trying to live our dreams, we are trying to have money for our income. And so all of those things affect our mental health. And so I think we have to get back to, and that goes to my, solutions, but we have to get back to learning how to rest and learning how to live and truly laughing and having fun, because we get so bogged down with the everyday tasks of life. And so for women to come and sit before someone like a therapist, a life coach, like someone like yourself, to be able to, sit down and carve out, how am I going to take care of myself again? Because once you have a baby and a husband, you kind of lose yourself a little bit if you're not careful. And I've been there too, like, oh, I haven't even brushed my teeth today. I've been worrying about everybody. That was, when my daughter was first born, I realized I didn't get ready until later. Like, and that's not good. So just being able to sit down with someone and figure out, how do I continue to live my life? How do I continue to be happy? How do I continue to put myself first while taking care of my family?
Yes, yes. And so I think you've already touched on my next question, which is around what are some of the most prevalent challenges to women's mental health that you have supported? One of the ones that you mentioned, technology. Even in just being I like to call myself a evolving
Yeah.
entrepreneur, but at the same time working a full-time job and being a wife and a mother. Like you said, the technology piece of this business aspect sometimes is overwhelming
Yeah.
to me, where I've said several times, like, okay, maybe I need to put Empower to Fit or the idea of being an entrepreneur on slow pause or on a shelf until my daughter graduates from high school. But then I remind myself that I have to rest.
Yeah.
So, like you said, rest is a part of it, and that I have to be intentional about taking those moments of rest, whether it's complete rest or active rest, to be able to be restored to
Mhm.
do what I know that God has called me to do. So,
Right.
you touched on it some when you mentioned technology, but what are some of the other prevalent challenges to women's health, mental health, that you've encountered with those that you've worked with?
Yeah, so really it's been prioritizing themselves. We put ourselves completely last. And then that causes anxiety and depression. That causes you to feel like, oh man, like, I know for myself, I have suffered with anxiety and depression. So when I start to put a lot of stuff on my calendar, I get anxious because I'm like, I'm constantly going, and then I'm not slowing down. And then it ends in a cycle of I have a cycle of stress that I like to share with people. It's like, we start going, filling our schedules up, and then we start to get tired and overwhelmed, and anxiety sets in. And then for me, I get sick. I don't know about for other people, but I find myself getting a headache, or I start to have, a cold or something because I haven't slowed down enough. And then the depression sets in because it's like, oh, like I'm doing so much, but I'm constantly pouring out to other people, but not myself. There was a great quote I heard on a video that I heard on Facebook, and this guy was saying, like, you've already watered, water your own garden. You've already watered everybody else's garden. You've seen everybody blossom and some beautiful flowers, but you're sitting over here like a whole weed with just a seed because you haven't watered yourself. And so that's the main issue I see with women is prioritizing themselves. And it could be if they don't have a family, it's normally their career that they're putting first. And then they don't have boundaries and they're doing so much. And so it's either women tend to, because we are nurturers and we care, we tend to put everybody else before ourselves. So that's, what I see mostly. And that I've helped women overcome that through living my own truth and, helping them to see what is their truth.
Right. Right. Something you said that just resonated with me, made me think about a bit of advice that one a former professor I had in grad school, a conversation we had right before I graduated. And so she was like, Tuere, you've done all the work that you need to do in school, and now you're getting ready to go into schools
Yeah.
to impact youth. But she said, I want you to remember that every great counselor has a counselor. And
Yeah.
it did, that didn't resonate with me until I was going through challenges
Yeah.
and what I thought that I was supporting myself because I'm a counselor, I can do this. And it
Yeah.
was like, no, Tuere, you may be a great counselor to the children that you work with, but not to yourself. So you yourself have to go and get counseling. And initially I saw that as a weakness. Why
Mm.
I know what to do. I know,
Yeah.
I know techniques and strategies. And it wasn't until I had to swallow that pill of pride and
Right.
say, but if you don't go get the help that you need, you can't continue to show up for these youth that
Yeah.
you enjoy impacting and nurturing and molding. And that's what I went and did. And so that therapist helped me realize that the coping skills that used to work for me weren't
Mm.
working anymore. So I need to establish some new coping skills because my life had changed. I was
Yeah.
now somebody's mother. I was
Right.
now somebody's wife, on top of being a counseling educator or a school counselor to children, and
Right.
then had lost Tuere all in the mix. Like she
Wow.
got left on the side of the road somewhere along
Yeah.
the way. And so, so, when you said that about being a weed with a seed that can't even, grow and manifest because we're so focused on pouring into other people,
Mhm.
that reminded me of that. So, what are some effective strategies we can implement to help minimize the potential negative effects of stress and anxiety and depression?
Yes, that is a great question. Another great question. What I found that has helped myself and other women is the first thing is, and I'm coming out with a course because we don't know how to rest. And when I
Mhm.
say rest, I mean doing something that's going to pour into you, that's going to fill you up. That could be, resting where you don't put, because I have like at least twice a month, I put do nothing on my calendar. That means I can do whatever I want that day. I don't have any counseling appointments. I don't have anything that I need to be doing. I am like, my husband doesn't know, okay, I'm not doing anything. Y'all find your own dinner. Like, everything, do nothing that, for one day. And that could be like you watching your favorite movie. That could be you going on a little shopping moment. But you have to find out what rest means to you. Rest to me is, find a time where I'm taking a mental break, so rest is also incorporated in some routines, meditation routine, being able to calm your mind and And meditation is one of those things where you're slowing your brain because we're constantly stimulated. And so if we want to decrease the anxiety, we have to slow down. We have to give our brain a pause. Also, getting enough rest. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen people spiral out of control because they don't get enough rest. That's the first thing I ask in the intake when I counsel somebody. How is your sleep schedule? And so making sure that you're resting and giving your brain time to recuperate from the day that you had is really important. So sleep, meditation, finding your me day. The other thing is setting boundaries. Definitely boundaries are huge. Saying yes, and I think you said this when we talked before, like, no is a complete sentence, and you don't have to add all that stuff at the end of it. But I did something huge this year. I set some boundaries where I was basically helping other people live their dreams. I was passionate about it at first. That was before I had a daughter and a husband. But I had to tell that person no because it became a strain to me. It became too much for me to have meetings and I'm not, doing my social media or my lives. And so being able to say yes to yourself and no to others so that you can live your dreams is really important, because what we don't want to do is be resentful because we're helping other people and not helping ourselves. Maybe one day I'll be able to support that person with financially or in another way, but right now I have to build myself. I have to water my own garden. And so it's important to set boundaries. And the third thing is to connect with God. That should have been first, but connecting with God, asking him to help you, lead you, guide you, and having that support system, because God gives you the right people that are going to do the right things, and going to help you and support you in many ways. Like, you know, just I mean, even you, like, I'm just so thankful for you because, even though we may not talk every day, we still are able to connect and say, hey, how you doing? Everything okay? Like, we are still able to be there for each other. And so those are the three things I recommend: finding your rest routine, setting your boundaries, and definitely connecting with God.
Oh, you said a mouthful then,
I
Candice.
know.
And so I like to make sure I do a recap after you answer every question, and even just connected to how it resonates to me. First, I want to say I like how you said a shopping moment. You didn't say a shopping spree because you said a
Right.
shopping moment. You was like, okay, this because you don't need to create another issue of being in debt or spending
Right.
money you don't have. So do a shopping
Yes.
moment. That might be, a little pair of earrings, or it might be some new
Yes.
hair products or whatever.
Right. Something exciting.
Just
Yeah.
do a shopping moment. But you talked about the importance of rest, and you're right, a lot of us don't rest because the society, whether it's social media or where we
Yeah.
work, or even in entrepreneur world, or maybe just the people in our family or friends or whatever,
Mhm.
push a grind mindset. Like, if you're
Yeah.
not working or you're not going after the dollar, the bag, or whatever people want to call it, then you're being lazy, or you're not serious about what it is that you say you want. But
Yeah.
rest helps re-energize you for you doing what you are put on this earth to do. And
Yeah.
so when we don't do that, then we are burnt out, and that's an opportunity for other things to set in, what you're talking about: stress, anxiety, and depression,
Mhm.
also for disease or dis-ease, as I like to
Right.
call it, to set in, because we're not giving our body what it needs. And so we both have referenced the power of God, or the role that plays in what we have been called to do.
Yeah.
But I have to remind myself, like, to where even he rested.
Right.
And then, if when you read the Bible, there's several moments of rest throughout it. It wasn't just that one time when he created the world. Like, there were often moments of rest. So if he can make time to rest and allow all this creation to happen, then
Yeah.
why can't you? And you don't measure up to him at all. So
Come
pause, ma'am.
on. Yes.
So pause. And that's so important. And you also had me reflecting on my upcoming mecation. So, I told you about that. I'm a little
Yes.
excited.
Yes.
Um, but I will be honest and transparent and share that I'm very excited,
Mhm.
and I try to be careful about my words.
Yeah.
Um, and so not try to use the word nervous and just use
Right.
excited instead. But in our transparency, I am a little, I'll say for this, nervous because I am not used to being separate
Right.
from my family, by myself, for
Mhm.
for the intention of being by myself. So I've been separate from them to go and work my business at an opportunity in another state, things of that nature. But I was working, but for my upcoming vacation, not doing nothing. But
Yeah.
focusing on me. I'm going to the location I'm going. I don't have any plans other than to
Right.
go out and get into nature and walk. But other than that, I have already said, God, it's whatever you tell me to do. It's
Mhm.
whatever you want me to do. And
Yeah.
if you say to her, you're gonna sleep, we're gonna sleep. If you say to her,
Right.
you're gonna watch, watch something and not have to worry about who's eating and all that, then that's what we're gonna do. If we're gonna explore the area, we're gonna explore the area. But it feels foreign and
Right.
in some way a little selfish that I'm doing this. But guess what? I have to, because I
Yeah.
told them if I don't, then they're no longer gonna get a good version of me. And if I can't give them a good version of me, it's because I'm not giving myself a good version of me.
I love that. I love that. Wow.
So, what you just said just reminded me of that I really am excited to be able to be like,
Yes.
love you. I'll see y'all in
Yep.
a couple of days.
Right. I'm out. Done. Yes.
I
That really.
am. It
Wow.
is very
Wow.
important. And so, even for those that will watch this later to know that even if you are not in a position to leave and go to another city or another state, like Candice gave us several examples of what that can look like within our home or within our own city.
Yeah.
Start small because that's what I have to do also sometimes too, like being able to take
Right.
2 days away. It took me a while to get to this point.
Right.
But I would take days, like she said, and still do, take what my husband and I call Sabbath. So Saturday is my Sabbath,
Yeah.
Sunday is his. And it's like
Love
what we
it.
say is that that's the day that we don't function according to expectancy from each other. Like
Right.
his
Right.
urgency is not my emergency on Saturday, and my urgency is not his emergency on Sunday. And
Love.
we are learning to respect that and even teaching our daughter too, like take time for yourself. Go take some time and be quiet and do what you enjoy doing without an expectation from us.
Right. Right. I love that.
So, yeah, so that leads into my next question is how does our mental health affect our total health?
Whew. Okay, so I think I really base this off of what you just said, what your grandmother told you, that everything starts with a thought, right? Because when we think about it, our brains are set up to where it tells us it's the GPS. It tells us, it tells our heart what to do. It tells us when we are in danger, fight or flight mode, when we, need to get away from something. Our brain is the major operating system, and so our minds, our mental health is really important because that is the basis of everything. Everything, like you said, starts with a thought, and so if we start with good thoughts and if we because I mean if you think about it, I think there was a study done, and you know about this study where there was a doctor, and he did a study on some ice crystals, and so he spoke over two different cups, and so he said he did, I think it was music that he used, but he did and I'll have to put it in the comments below, but he did good music and good vibrations over one ice cup, and then the other ice cup was bad music and bad vibrations, and so the good cup was able to crystallize in something beautiful, and the other one just didn't do anything. It just was stagnant and looked a little ugly. So I'll put that study so you guys can read it more further in detail, but the idea is that even when we are sick, right, our brains are like, oh, you need to go rest, you're depressed, you don't feel good. Everything feels like, I don't know if anybody has ever experienced COVID, but I haven't, but I've heard people that say, like, I feel like I'm gonna die. Like I feel
Mhm.
so bad because you have all these bad vibrations and energies and stuff. But being able, even when I have a cold, like I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get over this. I'm gonna be better, I'm gonna go rest and then I'll be better. I'm gonna take this medicine, then I'm gonna be better. So everything starts with a thought. And so being able to have your affirmations, like, look, I got my affirmation cards. So when I'm having a bad day, I tell people, all right, what's your go-to song? What's your go-to song? Or pull out your affirmation cards. The one, okay, I dare to live affirmation cards. Your last blessing is your next test. Don't lose focus. So if I'm losing focus, it's like every time I pull it out, it speaks to me. So you have to find your go-to things that are going to help you. But to answer your question, your mental health is very important. How we speak to ourselves is very important because it is true. When you say negative things over yourself, that releases bad chemicals, that releases cortisol. When you say good things to yourself, that releases the good, feelings and emotions and, neurotransmitters in your brain. So I have someone, listen, I always want to keep going, but I'm like, okay, she asked me a question before.
Yes, but you answered it and you gave us some extra, so I appreciate it. On top of, you gave me a little spotlight for the
Yeah,
affirmation
I
cards
love these
that are
cards.
available on Empowered to Fit. So I'll say that real quick.
Yes.
But yes, I'm excited that you are incorporating them in your day, and we'll be using them with your clients. And so that was the intention. But you are right. Words have power. And
Mhm,
so we are so used to, as women, speaking over into other people, but
mhm.
we sometimes struggle with speaking life over into ourselves. And
Yes.
so we have to make sure that we are speaking into ourselves just as much as we are speaking to others, and that those words are powerful. So when, like how you said, when you don't feel well, you do what you need to do physically, but you
Mm,
also speak positivity into yourself to help change your mindset. Because we can go into, oh my God, I'm sick, I don't need this right now. Or, how long am I going to be sick? Or is this really a cold? Or is this, something else, and it
right.
just spirals into downward with
Mm.
that. So next question is, what impacts, and you touched on this a little, what impacts does technology have on our mental health?
Mm, okay. You ever hear people always saying like, "Oh, I need a break from social media,"
Mhm.
because technology is very stimulating. Technology, we don't realize the background that goes on in our minds. You see somebody taking a trip to Jamaica, your mind automatically goes, "Oh, I want to take a trip. How can I make that happen? Oh, they're having a good time." And you're thinking about what's going on because you automatically relate that to your own life. And
Mhm.
so technology is another form of stimulation that happens. I've even seen people like when I first started, when the pandemic started, my eyes were kind of like hurting a little bit because I wasn't used to looking at a screen. I was used to sitting in front of people in person and being able to like talk and connect with them that way. So my eyes began to hurt because your eyes are being stimulated. Your brain is trying to send messages to you to let you know what's going on. And so whenever we have technology, it's so stimulating. Even when you realize, like, I've seen people have headaches because they look at their phones so much. If you think
Mhm.
about the radiation and technology and you scrolling and looking and all of this stuff, that causes your brain to become anxious, and then you can become depressed because you were constantly comparing yourself to other people. But as far as like technology with anything, we have to take a break from it. I know I do
Mhm.
because like you can compare yourself. That's the number one thing with technology is comparing yourself and the stimulation. And so in order to combat that, because all technology is not bad, we have so much information at our fingertips. It's about just using it in moderation.
Mhm. I think a lot of us are experience pressure to not miss out, right?
Yeah,
And
right,
so, we don't want to miss what might the opportunity that might come. We don't want to miss the new threads or the new
yeah,
fit that somebody, a company or a small business is releasing. We don't want to miss knowing something first. It's
right,
all about you. So that pressure added onto the being on it a long time. And how you talk about the electromagnetic frequencies that's released from the
yes,
devices and things of that nature, is just all things that our body and our minds are trying to process. And so when you was like, so you hear people say, I have to take a social media, or I hate social media, I wanted to raise my hand. And not
right.
because, it's a great tool if it's used correctly, but the the work that goes into how we use it, like I
Mhm.
mentioned earlier, it can be overwhelming, whether it's with a business or keeping in contact with families. And that
Yeah,
just reminds me, like, how some, for technology was such a massive tool being used, we used to pick up the phone and call and to have a
Right.
conversation,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
hear each other voices or make time to go and visit. And now, people, that's their first means of communication
Yeah.
is technology, whether it's through text messages or, through their social media platforms. And if
Right.
you call them, it's like they won't answer you, but then they'll text you back. And it's like, but I called you. Like I wanted to hear your voice. So call
Right.
me back. And so there's certain people in my circles. I'm like, I try to make time to pick up the phone and call them, or
Right.
I'll text and say, "Are you available?" and then call. But
Right.
especially the younger generation, and I get it, it's convenient. And so,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it can be misinterpreted and misunderstood in regards to tone, in regards to what you're saying, and all of that too. And
Yeah.
the way that, this generation uses technology to the cancel culture, or
Right.
to be able to expose things about other people that they wouldn't have exposed themselves. And so
Right.
it just brings a negative energy or a negative perception about technology. And we have to be intentional and just step away from it, and
Right.
take breaks from it too, and know that whatever we miss, if it's meant for us to know about it, it'll
Yeah.
come back around. It made me think about how, with growing up and certain things I would wear, my mom would be like, "Oh, girl, that's just coming back in style. We used to do that." So that's how I feel about technology and things that go out. It'll come back, if it's
Right.
for me, it'll come back for me.
Mm.
But not stressing myself out about not using it in ways that other people are using it, or missing the information that I may miss when I do take my breaks from it. So
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
glad you mentioned that. So next, what is the best way to find good and affordable mental health support?
Yes, yes, great question. So the one thing I would say is Psychology Today is a great resource because you can go on there, you can categorize it by the type of therapist you want, the modality, like action and commitment therapy, trauma, anxiety, depression, the disorders. You can even categorize it to your insurance, what insurance the therapist takes. And so another thing is Psychology Today, and then talking to your insurance provider about like the people in the area to be able to find the therapist that you're looking for. That's why they're there, so you can call them. The other thing is some therapists offer a sliding scale fee. And so asking them about that if you're not able to afford counseling. I think in the beginning you talked about how other countries are advocates for mental health and are on that top list, and US is bottom because those other countries have universal health care. Those they don't have to pay for things like therapy and things and stuff like that, but there is a therapist out there for you that will offer a sliding scale fee that you will be able to see. It's just about continuing to find that person, and you just have to reach out for help, and it will happen. So those are some of my reasons.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And just to add one or two more is for those that, work for companies,
Yeah.
the EAP services,
Right.
they are built into your insurance. And so most EAP services provide a few free sessions.
Mhm.
And if you need more beyond that, then you'll have to pay, but you can use your insurance after that. But at least it gives you an opportunity to find out if you and that therapist are the best fit for each other. And if you want to continue
Right.
with them, or if you like, okay, by the third session, no, this is not the person for me, then,
Right.
if you use EAP services, you haven't paid for it, and you
Mm.
can work on finding somebody else to work with. And, also just being willing to try again when you don't find the best fit. So a lot of times, and it made me think about, because I've heard people say, well, I reached out and I didn't like the therapist, so I just gave up. Well, you don't do that when you don't like something you eat, and you don't
Right.
like it, then you find something else that you like to eat. You don't do that. A lot of us, when we get in relationships with the wrong people, then
Right.
we're entertaining somebody else. So why
Yeah.
would you do that about your mental health? And
Come
when you
on.
know that you need the support, then
Right.
go back at it. Maybe
Yeah.
there's something you need to change about how you were looking, or what you were looking for, or
Right.
how you were perceiving your need for mental health. And so, I just wanted to add that little bit in it, because I hear a lot of people say, well, they tried. I went for a couple of sessions and it just went for me. And then they just don't try again, and they continue to
Right.
struggle with whatever they're struggling with. But it's like, okay, well, get back up and try it again. That's what we teach
Yeah.
our children when
Right.
they fail. That's what we were taught when we failed, or we had to learn the hard way. So we have to be the same way about our mental health
That's so
as
true.
well. And then, so when we first started this conversation, I said, we were talking about as a woman thinketh,
Mhm.
so is she. And so we've been talking about that, but we also said that we would talk about, your mind, your meals, and your movement. And so I intentionally saved this last question for last.
Yeah.
But what role does nutrition and
Mm.
exercise play in mental health?
Listen, that's why I feel like God came up with New Vision Therapy and Wellness.
Okay.
Because first of all, you're a great inspiration to that, because I know that you're all about wellness, and you had your own story that you transformed your life through the choices and changes that you made, and through hearing from God about different things, and it wasn't easy. And so with New Vision Therapy and Wellness, what I do is I'm marrying mental health and wellness services together, because it is important that we, what the future of this looks like is a nutritionist on staff, is a physical trainer that I have on staff, is yoga classes, and being able to work out and have a physical fitness trainer, because it is important. It's not just about sitting and talking to someone and working through your problems. It's also about what you do outside of session. And so nutrition is really important, because okay, when we eat that Thanksgiving meal, we feel terrible because we ate so much food. When we eat vibrant foods and foods that are good, like if I have a smoothie and a salad and have, good vibrating food, then I feel great. If I have, food that is greasy and heavy and fattening, then I feel terrible, and so that plays into your mood and your mental health. And then if you think about movement, when you move, you have less stress. Whenever we have, of course, fitness, everybody knows that when you're moving, your endorphins are flowing. And really, fitness is fuel for the brain. It gets a connection moving in your brain. When you're sitting still, not doing anything, you become stagnant. Look at people that have been laying in the hospital bed. What do they get? Gangrene, because they're not moving. They're not doing anything to stimulate their bodies. And so if we want our brain to function optimally, if we want to, continue to have great health, we have to move. And so nutrition and movement are all intertwined into mental health. And so it is my new mission to be able to bring all those things together and to help people see the importance of all of that, because all of that is your wellness.
Exactly. Touching on all the dimensions of wellness, but most important, the eating and the moving.
Yeah.
You said that fitness is our, what did you say? Fuel for our
Yes,
body?
fuel for the brain.
Yes,
Yeah,
fuel
it
for the brain. And
yeah.
it also, when we move, it helps move the toxins. Like,
Yes, come
we don't think
on.
about that. The toxins
Right.
that are, whether it's in your intestines or your colon,
Yes.
or the toxins that need to move through our lymph system, helping push that out. Like you talked about the
Yes.
endorphins and, those hormones and stuff, that happy hormones that are released when we work out. And so it may be difficult
Mhm.
initially, but
Right.
when we make it a repetition, then we begin to realize that the benefit outweighs the discomfort. And sometimes we got
Right.
to just, go ahead and be comfortable with being uncomfortable when it comes to
Yes.
um, exercise or physical fitness and eating well. You hear people all the time that say, I don't like water, or I don't eat vegetables. And in my head, I'm like, okay, well, you don't want to live a long time,
Yeah.
because what they don't realize is that if they're not given our body is mostly made of water. So we're not
Yeah.
putting water in to replenish, and we only put in sodas and alcohol and things of that nature. Water is what helps flush us out. It helps nourish our brain, and
Right.
everything that you've already said. So I am not the poster child for exercise, but what I have decided is that it's a non-negotiable. It has to
Right.
happen. Now, do I fall out? Yes, but I get back up.
Right.
And so after getting back up, it becomes consistent again. And just like how people say, it's just like riding a bike. I remember why it's important. so that I can keep
Yes.
going. And there are different times where I surround myself with people, like-minded people who know that exercise is a non-negotiable, or like-minded people who know that healthy eating is a non-negotiable. Do I have days where I eat cheesecake? Because that's my favorite dessert, to be honest. So
Yes.
yes, I do. But I also go back to eating those live foods that help, nourish my body and also help push that cheesecake out so it won't
Come on.
be in there too long, or whatever. But it's all about consistency, and then surrounding ourselves with people who remind us of what is important and what the goal is. And so that's what I heard you say, that you have surrounded yourself with other people that can help you pour into the people that you are impacting. And that's amazing. Um, and so I am just excited about everything that you are doing through New Vision, everything that God is doing through you, and those that you encounter. And so I am just so thankful for this opportunity, for this conversation. Before I close this out, Candice, I do want to have you repeat those effective strategies that you said earlier,
Okay.
around the question of what are some effective strategies that can help implement women can implement to help minimize the negative effects of stress, anxiety, and depression.
Yes, thank you so much for having me today. And to repeat those, I will say learn to rest, find your rest routine. Like we talked about, that could be, you have to find out what rest means to you. That could mean saying, like nobody asked me anything for the whole day. It could be doing you a shopping moment. It could be going outside, enjoying nature, find your rest routine. Meditation, sleep is important as a part of that rest routine. Number two, set boundaries. Say yes to yourself. Go after your dreams, your goals. No is a complete sentence, as Tuere said. And so set those boundaries so that you can live for you. Three is connect with God and your support system. So find those people that are going to water your garden, they're going to pour into you. And those are the things that we need to do. Remember to, I'll end with a quote, water your own garden. So I will end with that today. Thank you again for having me. It's been a pleasure. I'm so excited to continue being a part of this wellness journey, and just connecting to help other people. So thank you again.
So thank you for being here again. This, has been an amazing opportunity. I feel like every time we connect, like you said, even though we don't talk every day, or there are sometimes months go by, when we reconnect, we pick up right where we left off. So even though we are doing this to empower women and other people, about the importance of mental health, I feel like I just had an opportunity to sit and talk to one of my fristas about the importance of mental health, and just remind each other about continue to do what we know is working for us, and to be the living example for other women about why it is necessary for them to be intentional about their mental health. Why is it necessary for them to pour into themselves? So for those who watch this replay again, I apologize for the technology difficulties. I'll try to figure that out later. But I am glad that you all will get to watch the replay. Again, this is Candice Moffat of Candice Counsels on Instagram, or New Visions Therapy and Wellness on Instagram as well. She also has space on Facebook. She also has an amazing daughter that also has her own business and brand. So I would be
Right.
remiss if I don't give Belle a shout out at Belle's
Yes.
Glow.
Yes.
I
Yes.
like to call her a luxury lip line. Yes, Belle's Glow,
We got
luxury
best
lip
love.
line. Yes. And so we have Belle's Glow in our house. We actually just restocked our
Yeah.
supply last week. And so visit them as well. Continue to show up for yourselves, be the amazing women and people that you are. If you're not a woman, share this with a woman that you know needs to be reminded of putting herself first, of pouring into herself so that she can be her best self before she tries to show up for other people. So thank you again for watching today. Thank you so much for being here today, Candice. I wish you well. And I know that your other event this evening that you're speaking at, you are going to move mountains for women in that space as well. So until our paths cross again, which will be soon,
Yeah.
I just say thank you. My heart is full today.
Yes, I'm excited, and thank you again. I appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thank you for watching.